Hey, what's going on, guys? Bringing you another video here. Today we're talking about 3 signs you're having a spiritual awakening. And within this video, we are going to be going over 3 signs in which I created, and I have my notepad here as well, so I take these topics very seriously. So let's just jump right into this. 3 signs you're having a spiritual awakening. And then a little bit later on, I will talk about my spiritual journey just briefly to give you guys a further idea of what this is really like. Because whenever I first started waking up, I tell you what, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of confusion. And that's pretty normal in the beginning stages. But let's jump right into this. 3 signs you're having a spiritual awakening. So number 1 is life has caused you to stand out from the crowd. Number 1 is life has caused you to stand out from the crowd. You're going to begin on this spiritual journey of sorts. You'll know if you're becoming awake and if you're having a spiritual awakening if you find yourself isolated from groups. See, that was my biggest thing. And I was always like, why am I so different? Why do I not want to be a part of the group? You know what I'm saying? Something's wrong with me. And we tell ourselves things, guys, but no, it's just part of the spiritual journey. It's part of this awakening process. The spiritual awakening process is, in fact, a process that we must endure in order to better understand it. And that's why I'm also making these videos, so that we can better understand ourselves. And we can have the knowledge up here in our mind's eye, and then we can go out into the world and be okay. Be okay with this, with some of these things. So you find yourself isolated from other people. You're not a fan of groups. You're not okay with the rat race way of living. And you do have a vastly different perception on the matter, as opposed to a lot of people. They might just be walking around like this, acting normal, and pretending that their world is just completely normal, and, you know, have our faces in entertainment and some of the things that don't really matter, and let's not take care of our relationships and our health. And, you know, people just really living by the seat of their pants, you know, because I talk about having purpose for your life, and this spiritual journey of sorts and the spiritual awakening, you will eventually discover your deeper purpose, and you'll decide on a deeper purpose throughout the journey. So, like I said, number 1 is life has caused you to stand out from the crowd. I also had down here in my notes that we work better solo, and we're not okay necessarily with others leading. Now, that could actually sort of be negotiable, because I believe that through mentorship, and just like you guys watching these videos, that we are supposed to follow into a certain type of funnel. But it's the correct directed leadership. And you'll know it. I always tell people, you'll know if something's right for you by the feeling. You'll know within here that if it's right for you and your purpose and your spiritual awakening, then it will resonate on a very heartfelt level. And that's how you'll know who to follow as well. And that's how I said, whenever you're going through this process, you're going to find yourself isolated most of the time. And sometimes it's not even intentional. It's just this thing where, you see things vastly different, and your third eye is beginning to open, and your awareness is expanding, and you're beginning to realize the finer things in life. And that's all part of the process. So let's move on. And these are only 3 signs. So, but I want you guys to pay very close attention to these. Number 2. So 2 is you're very intuitive. Your gut feeling is rarely wrong. very rarely is your gut feeling wrong. If you feel something, it's the resignation, it's what resonates within self, and it's being in tune with one's own wants and needs and desires and feelings, and aligning yourself with those things regardless of how other people are seeing the situation. Because throughout this process, there's going to be a lot of people along our journey and path that are going to be there, yes, to support us. But then there's also going to be a handful of people who are not. There's going to be a handful of people that you know deep down you should cut them off, you know, appropriately. And I'm not saying to be rude in the situation, but that's another great sign that you'll come into awareness and harmony with, is that you'll find yourself becoming isolated and cutting off people quite frequently and quite often. And that's, again, you have to understand that's a normal process, because that's so that you have the opportunity and have more opportunity for expansion within one's own self and mind and your mind. So you have this awareness and expansion happening. And that can only happen if the majority of the time you're by yourself. So that's why it feels like, oh my gosh, it's so lonely. And no matter what you do, it seems like no matter what you do, whenever you're going through this spiritual awakening journey, is that whenever you like try to fit in, things and circumstances in that situation cause you to stand out. So that was very interesting on my journey too. Early on, I tell you what, it's like anytime I would try to fit in, it's like, no, man, like the world knew immediately that, no, like, Mike, you're Mike. You know, you're not this. And it's like I couldn't fool other people even if I tried. So guys, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, because if you're having this spiritual journey and spiritual awakening experience in your life currently, and you're going through the early stages or like the middle stages or whatever, you're going to have a lot of confusion, kind of like I talked about earlier on. I had a lot of confusion happening because I wasn't sure if I was like self-sabotaging. I wasn't sure if something was wrong with me. We're going to have all these fear, we're going to have the fear, doubt, and worry all seep into our minds. And it's our responsibility to understand these principles in which I'm talking about and discussing in this video. So back to number 2, you're very intuitive. Your gut feeling's rarely wrong. You can read people like a book. You're very in touch and in tune with your own self and your own emotions and other people's emotions. Like you could be in a room with somebody, they don't have to say a word, but immediately you know. And you also know that you're on a very spiritually awakening path is if you're empathetic, if you care for the thoughts and feelings of others, and you have this urge in yourself that you want to help others. There's this like deeper responsibility, and like, you know, deep down in your spirit that you're made to do something more with this world than to just live in the rat race and be the same. Like you're made to stand out. And see, this is what I talk about, life's happening for us instead of life happening to us. Life's happening for the spiritually awakened group. Life is happening for you. Just like I talked about early on. All the confusion, I was like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I fit in? It's because I wasn't made to fit in. I was made to stand out so that I can better serve the world and serve the other people who are going through the same type of journey. So isn't it beautiful that we create that meaning? But you have to realize that it's nothing wrong with you. It's a higher gift. You're called to a higher purpose than the typical person. So we have to cherish that. We have to own our gifts. We have to own the fact that we are special. We truly are. So definitely own your purpose and own the fact that you are having an awakening, and be honest with yourself. And it's okay. It's okay. So everyone around you, you are very in tune with them. You're very in tune with the animals and the trees and nature. And you always find that nature draws itself to you. And I'll tell you another thing, is water. It's not only the trees around us, but I'll even, look at this, and that's the river. Like, it's like everywhere that I've like grown up around, like my whole life, right? Growing up, I always found myself around water. Like, whether it was swimming pools, it could be the ocean, it could be lakes, rivers, ponds, and I didn't even like ask for that. But see, the angels help us along our journey. Isn't that awesome? So like, it's not like, all of this has a purpose, guys. Like, that's what that's beautiful about having this, you know, spiritual awakening, is that there are spiritual entities that are unseen to our physical eye, to our physical senses. We have to realize that the angels are around us at all times. And, you know, God or infinite intelligence or source, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you call it, you know, energy is always ready to help us. You know, it's always, and we must ask in the form of feeling. So like, if you're really feeling a point of distress or confusion, you ask for clarity in the form of a feeling. So you just feel your way. I tell people all the time, feel your way to success. Feel your way through this journey. Feel your way to and through the spiritual journey in which that you're on. So let's move on to the third and final sign that you're having a spiritual awakening. So the third and final sign that you're having a spiritual awakening is you're told, or you've been told, that you have an old soul. You're very intuitive. You know that you've been here before. There's something in here that allows you to discern on previous life experience. There's something that you intuitively know up here and in here, in our hearts and in our minds, that for sure allow us to come into the awareness that this isn't my first rodeo, because you almost kind of feel intelligent, you know, and it's a positive thing. It's not like it's definitely not an ego trip, but it's an appropriate passion viewed in terms of pride. You know, it's a healthy form of pride to say, I'm special and I know I've been here before, and this time around, since I've learned through other life experience, this time around is different. Life's causing me to expand my awareness, unbelievably so that I can go forth in the world and make expansive changes in other people's perception, in the perception of certain businesses. You know, because we're talking about change on a global, worldly scale. Whenever we say that we've come to this life before and we're an old soul, man, you know, people are telling us, man, you have an old energy. You've been around for a while. You're having a spiritual awakening. You really are. So you really have to own this change. You have to own this positive state of being, of this is a deeper purpose. And just remember that our spirit guides are always around us at all times. If you ever have questions, you ask in the form of feeling, you know. And you can ask, you can vocalize whatever you need to vocalize, but truly, they don't always speak the language that we speak. It's a deeper feeling aspect, and you, like I say, you have to feel your way through the process in order to better understand the process. And that's sort of where I'm at, and I'm really learning to discern my feelings and myself at all times, and scanning my body for anxiety if I do have any, and adjusting it accordingly. And it's not to say that fear, worry, doubt in these state of, you know, temporary, these temporary states won't come up, because they're still going to come up. It's a physical human condition here. But we always find a way to push through. So number 3, you're told you have an old soul. You know on a deeper level that you're meant to be here for global change, for a deeper change in the world. So I actually wrote some more notes here on the back. concerning number 3. So you feel guided by a higher intelligence. We've already talked about that. You frequently get out of getting in trouble. Now, this one I found really interesting because earlier on in my spiritual awakening, it's like I would get, pulled over for like some sort of traffic violation, and it could be just out in everyday life, right? And we have these circumstances and situations and experiences that are there to help us learn. But for some reason, whenever you're having a spiritual awakening, you find yourself being able to get out of trouble relatively easy. And it's actually quite neat, because I believe it's our spirit guides, and it's the Holy Spirit working through these other people, because they see our light. They see the light that we're shining, and I'm not saying it's 100% flawless. It's not like, because there are minor imperfections where, yeah, if we push the boundary enough, sure, we're going to get in trouble, because life wants to teach us about that trouble that we put ourselves in. So, but most of the time, if your intention was right, and you know that you weren't doing it to hurt anybody or anything, life knows. Life can tell. And our spiritual guides works through other people by way of the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit will cause other people to forgive us when maybe they, have the option not to. It's really interesting, guys, because it works through us, not only through us, but through them, because they see our light that we shine. If you're having a spiritual awakening journey, you're shining a light. You really are. And others, it inspires people like clockwork. It really does. You have a blessing on your life through experience. We just talked about that. You come out of pain better. You come out of painful, negative circumstances that appear to be hindering. You come out better, more confident, more attractive. That's also what I found very interesting, because throughout this spiritual awakening journey and path, I was thinking, it's crazy that to go back and think, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we've been through. We've been through so much. We've been through so many experiences. We've learned. We've been able to grow and learn and adapt to change and the oncoming tides and all of these, vicious winds and aggressive circumstances that came into our lives. But if you know that you're on the path of a spiritual awakening, if you're coming out better, stronger, it doesn't break you. You know that you have a rock in here. You know that you have a rock in your mind that it holds steadfast. It holds steadfast in the face of different adversities. And we come out better, brighter, and our light shines even brighter. So that's a really good indication. That's a really good indication that you're going through a very spiritual journey and spiritual awakening. If you come out of these experiences having learned from the experiences, and you come out a lot stronger, and you can feel a difference in your body too, and you see a difference whenever you look yourself in the mirror. You look back at old photos. Like, I'll sometimes go back. I got to show you guys sometime, but and I lost 40 pounds throughout this journey, and I've had a lot of different emotional shifts within this spiritual awakening, and my awareness has just blown up. But it's funny looking back at different photos, and it's like, oh my gosh, I remember hating my life back here. I remember having such a struggle and such a pain to get through, but then we understand it was all for a deeper purpose, and we always have our spirit guides. So the last one I had on here for number 3 is, you notice a lot of repeating numbers. And those are another way that our spirit guides communicate to us and through us, through our physical senses, is we notice a lot of repeating numbers. That one's pretty self-explanatory, but in the beginning stages of my journey in spiritual awakening, I saw a lot of like 57, 75, 37, 73, 222, 777, 1111, 111. And then you just 1, 2, 3, 4 was a really big one. That was a really, really big one, and I still see that from time to time. I've been seeing a lot of like 5, 5, 5 recently, and then I used to see a lot of 4, 4, 4. And it depends on the way I see it. It depends on what you're asking for in the feeling. Because remember, I talked about it. That's how we access this power to a higher intelligence. Is we ask in the form of feelings, and then they respond, usually through little signs here and there, confirming that okay, we're here. We're here helping you out. You're not alone. You'll also see various different signs, like you're on the road, or you drive past a billboard, or you drive past a sign, or on different cars you'll see like bumper stickers. I was just going through a really, really rough space not that long ago, and I like literally the exact moment that I needed it. I'm not kidding, guys. The exact moment that I needed it, I was almost home. And I was driving, and on the license plate in front of me, it was actually, sounds like a helicopter. But actually, I noticed it was actually in the form of like a license plate frame, and it said, "Don't worry, God's got this." And I've seen that multiple times, and I think it's been on the same vehicle before. It's crazy, guys. But you'll see things like that. You'll notice signs, and your awareness is just going to be drastically expanded, because that's the whole point of this awakening. Because then you might be asking yourself, what's the whole point of this awakening? Why? It's so that we can expand, go forth. Because see, universal intelligence is all for expansion. That's why we're here. It's all for expansion. It's for the expansion of consciousness. That's why. Because universal intelligence, higher source, is working through you in the physical form in order to expand your level of awareness, so that we can go put that our light, that light that we were talking about, how we're special, so that we can go put our light forth in the world with the expanded awareness, so that we might create better positive change and better outcomes in the world. Because there's a lot of darkness in the world. That's why, if you're asking yourself, why me? It's because you're special. You're having a spiritual awakening because you've been chosen. You really are chosen one. But that's why you're chosen. Because God or source or intelligence only trusts his purpose with those who know, who he knows has a clear intention, has a kind heart, one that is never for destruction. It's the light that shines through us. That's why we're chosen. That's why that we have our purpose, because we are created for a higher purpose, one of infinite abundance. And the universe rewards this behavior. Better believe it. Whenever you understand that this is the will of energy and source and God, and you align with that will, man, I tell you what, you're going to be rewarded. You really will, because the universe is always for higher levels of awareness. It's always for higher levels of expansion. And it's going to work through you and myself in order to create more expansive awareness and change. So you see what I'm talking about. It's all about perception. It's all about shining our light so that it will inspire others. So this was 3 signs you're having a spiritual awakening. I've been holding up my hand a good part of the day, because this was another day where I was really focused on different videos and different ideas. So wrapping this one up, guys, one more time, 3 signs you're having a spiritual awakening. Now, number 1, life has caused you to stand out from the crowd. 2, you're very intuitive. You're very in tune with yourself and with others and with animals and with nature and with water. And you are drawn to the vibrations, the finer vibrations of life, to the finer vibration of emotion, and the things that cause us to expand in the positive direction, the direction which our light shines. It's attracted to other sources of light energy. And 3, you're told you have an old soul. You're here for much deeper purpose, and your spirit guides are always here to guide you along your journey along your awakening, just remember that you're never alone. Even if you're alone in the physical like this, you're never alone. Never. You're never alone. And always understand that, because if you're in pain and you ask for relief in the form of a feeling, immediately Spirit or God or Source, whatever you want to call it, goes to work immediately to bring about positive, healthy change for you. And it will use that pain as well to push you into your purpose. So that's another point, is that, the change won't always be there, immediately, because it can still use the negatives. That's beautiful. It can still use the darkness. In fact, it is only through the dark that our light shines the brightest. Remember that, guys. So this was 3 signs you're having a spiritual awakening. Be strong along your journey, and remember, ask if you must ask for assistance and guidance and help in order to better understand this state of confusion. If you're going through the early stages, ask for it, but in the form of a feeling. Feel your way through the process. Feel your way to success. Feel your way to your passion and live that passion. Feel your way to and through this beautiful journey.